Hello and welcome to D20 Woodworking and happy Shield preview month, I guess. It's happening for about a month, I guess. So welcome to today's video. We're going to be showing off two new cards that were provided to us from Fantasy Flight Games. So a huge shout out to them. Thank you for the support. Thank you for letting us show off these cards that will be in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Expansion box that's due to release from the time of this video in like 3-ish weeks. So make sure you go pre-order your box if you have not yet, so you can join along in the fun. But yeah, we have two cards to look at. I think they're pretty interesting cards, and I'm gonna be honest, one of them had me looking at the rules for a little while, which I thought was kind of interesting, and the other one has me kind of hyped on it. So let's go check out some cards. Really quick before we dive into the cards, do me a huge favor, make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when the next video goes live. It helps out this channel, so I greatly appreciate it. So thank you for everyone that has already done that, and if you haven't, please consider doing so. So first we have Slingshot, or Yo-Yo Rodriguez. She is a leadership ally. 3 costs, 2/2/3 stat line. Now that in itself is actually not a terrible stat line, right? It's not amazing by any means, but it's not bad, right? A 2/2/3 stat line I'm generally pretty happy with. She is shield and spy traded, which is always good because shield, obviously we're gonna get a lot of shield stuff, so it depends on how she works off of other cards in the shield trait. When we'll see when we get there with all the cards when they finally release of like how she will interact with that. We don't fully know yet. And same with spy. There hasn't been a ton done with spy. There's obviously a little bit in this box. It gives us hope for more spy related things because I really like the spy trait. I think it's an avenue they haven't really explored too much in Marvel Champions that would be really cool if they do. So I'm happy to see it on this card. Okay, so now we have an action. Spend an energy resource and put Slingshot into play from your hand under any player's control. At the end of the phase, if Slingshot is still in play, return her to your hand. So at first, I glance at this because, like me, I read cards way too fast, and I go, okay, spend an energy resource, not terrible, to put her into play under any player's control. So this could be good if there's somebody at the table that has like a lot of ally ready ups or whatever it may be, or if they're running aggression with a boot camp where it gives all the allies at the table +1 attack. And again, if you can ready it up or whatever, maybe you can get something interesting to work out there. Uh, now, the next sentence is what's kind of interesting. At the end of the phase, if Slingshot is in play, return her to your hand. And the reason being is because of how end of player phase works, right? So for those that don't know, in case you don't, there's the player phase, then there's the enemy phase, and the whole thing is the round. So when you look at like a Nick Fury card, it's at the end of the round you would discard Nick Fury ally, the basic ally from play. Now, the end of the player phase, when I first read this, and we're probably gonna need some rules experts on this at some point, um, because I was like, oh, you would draw up, or I'm sorry, you would put this in your hand and then draw up, right, at end of player phase. And it's interesting to see when it actually would be done, right? So the wording is at the end of the phase, if Slingshot is still in play, return her to your hand. So really quick, I want to look at the 1.6 rules here of the game where we have end of player phase, right? So this is page 17 rulebook. To end the player phase, perform the following steps. In player order, each player may discard any number of cards from their hand and must discard down to their, let's just make that bigger, to their hand size if they have more than, they have too many cards in their hand, right? Okay, fine. 2, each player simultaneously draws up their hand size. Okay, cool. 3, each player simultaneously readies all their cards. Okay, everything's interesting there. And then 4, any effects that last until the end of the player phase end. And so this isn't really effects, that's fine. And then finally, we resolve any when and after the player phase ends effects. This doesn't exactly have that exact wording, but to me, that kind of reads as like the same thing, right? At the end of the phase. Yeah, at the end of the phase, if Slingshot is still in play, return her to your hand. So I don't know. It would be kind of interesting to see where that actually falls on the rules. If this can be drawn up in your hand and then you put Slingshot in your hand after the fact. Because here's the thing, playing Slingshot each round will get pretty expensive, right? Just to play her card down is the effective resource cost of 1 because you're losing a resource from your hand. And if you have to spend an energy resource, if you spend that from your hand, now you're paying essentially 2 effective resource costs to play this card, which maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not. Or if you have a resource generator, that's a little bit better, but still it's 2 effective resource costs. So, does that make it worth it? Well, it kind of does if it reads that you would be able to get Slingshot after you draw your hand because you're getting one extra card. So, even though, yes, it's still two effective resource, you're getting one additional resource that you shouldn't have had, right? It's kind of an interesting way of looking at the card. Again, it'll be I'll let people in the comments debate about the rules and how this will work because I could kind of read it really either way at this. But yeah, I think it's a really kind of like fascinating card in the way that it works. All right, next one we have is Melinda May, a 4 cost basic ally, 2/2/3 stat line. So just like Yo-Yo Rodriguez, but shield and spy trait as well. But response, not forced, so you can choose to do this. After Melinda May uses a basic power, look at the top card of the encounter deck. You may discard this card. Now, generally speaking, and this isn't going to be all the time, I'll explain in a second, is that when it's your turn and using a basic power, you're looking at what's going to be the boost card for the villain, right? So if you happen to look and it's a 3 boost or 3 boost with like an ability attached to it that does something terrible, like Advanced Glider or whatever it may be, uh, you may want to discard that card and take your chance with the next card. Now, if the enemy is stunned or confused and they're not going to get it, now allows you to look at what your encounter card would be, right? And so now you can make a better either prep plan for what you're about to get, because maybe it's a card that you don't mind dealing with, but you'll play this hand differently depending on what it is, or it's a terrible card that you just need to throw away and the next one is guaranteed to be better because there's nothing worse than what you have now. So, two ways of looking at it. I also really enjoy that you can basically use Melinda, like you can use his ability several times. So if you heal Melinda May over and over and over, keep her out there on the table, allows you to look through his cards. If you decide to use a kind of a ready up build with her or something like that and being able to like constantly discard off the top because there's a few bad cards in a row, I guess you can do that as well. There's some interesting things you could go there or do there. I think it's a good card, especially with dealing with boost icons, because there's a lot of times when you deal with a villain that has like 1 or 2 attack, let's say, but you don't know if you should block your turn or not, right? Exhausted defend or whatever it may be. So you go, okay, like I can now look at what the boost card is going to be. Oh, it's going to be a 0. Maybe instead of having my ally take this 1 damage and that's it, I'll just take the damage so that my ally is standing up straight for the next turn and can do attack or thwart or whatever it may be. So I actually like how this card is worded. I like how this card is done. I think it's actually a pretty cool card. And again, the downside would be if you mill too quickly through the encounter deck, it's going to get you an extra boost icon onto the or boost token, acceleration token. Sorry, it's going to get you an acceleration token onto the main scheme, which is going to have threat go on quicker and all that stuff. But it is only one extra card. It's not the worst thing in the world. I think the trade-off is pretty good. So I'm actually a big fan of this card. I could see myself using this card a lot in my Shield decks and actually in decks outside of Shield as well. So if you haven't done it yet, do me a huge favor. Make sure to like button, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thank you once again to Fantasy Flight Games for showing us these cards. Hopefully you've been enjoying all the preview videos. If you haven't yet, make sure to go check out those content creators and support them. I'm not the last one. There will be more, so make sure to keep your eye out next week for more reveals. I greatly appreciate the support, and I'll see you all next time.